Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Let's talk a little bit about Andy Cruz because he's signed with MATCHROOM and DAZN. Eddie Hearn, what a coup for Eddie Hearn. Now look, let me be really upfront and transparent about this. I am not someone who religiously watches amateur boxing. In fact, you call me a casual. It's just the way I was brought up. It was always the pro game, going to see the small hall fights from a young age and, following the pros. And I did watch, and I still do watch the amateurs, but, I'm not an authority on it by any stretch of the imagination. But even I, as someone who sort of keeps only one eye on it, could not fail to be sort of taken with two names. One was Moses Atama and this guy, Andy Cruz. There are others, but those were the two that sort of stuck in my head. And when Moses Atama signed with Frank Warren, which I suppose, bearing in mind the fact that his brother was already with Frank, that was not too surprising. You would have thought that, internationally, and certainly in the case of Eddie Hearn, who regards himself as an international promoter, you would think he would have wanted Moses Atama's signature. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm quite surprised that Andy Cruz has decided to sign with Eddie. And in case you don't know about Andy Cruz's record, he's an Olympic gold medalist. He won the World Amateur Championships 3 times, the Pan American Games twice. I think, he's got like 190, 140 wins and 9 defeats or something like that. Never ever stopped in the amateurs. Did actually lose his last amateur fight, strangely enough, but I think his eye was on something different. He's from Cuba, 27 years of age. He turns 28 in August. And obviously an immense talent, one of the great amateur fighters, massive achievements. But why DAZN? It's interesting. A guy from Cuba, doesn't speak English. You may have seen him interviewed on YouTube. He seems like a nice young fella, but doesn't speak any English, has to be translated. So why DAZN? Well, Eddie Hearn has been telling us for quite a while now, I am an international promoter. And it's true, there has been the danger of him spreading himself too thin across the different territories, because with DAZN, he's got a platform that's growing, that doesn't quite have the reach that, obviously in Britain, if you're talking Sky Boxing, Sky TV, that's a massive platform in Britain. But Eddie is looking beyond that, and people said, well, he lost control of the UK scene. I think he lost dominance of it. I don't think he's lost control entirely of it. I think he's still one of the top 2 promoters. Queensberry, the other one. I would put Hearn still above Warren in the pecking order as far as the UK scene goes, but people emphasise, Warren's got the heavyweights. He's got Tyson Fury, he's got, Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce, and but beneath that, I don't think there's much depth to his stable. Whereas Eddie, I think Eddie Hearn and DAZN, I think they still put on, unfortunately, not nearly enough. But when they do put on shows, they're superior to the ones that Warren puts on, or that Ben Shalom puts on Sky. There's a Sky, the Bawatsi card at the weekend. I don't think it was that good at all. And there were 1 or 2 fights that were okay. The Tyler Denny fight wasn't bad, and there were a couple of others. But obviously the main event was a complete, tedious farce. I mean, it's awful spectacle. So, and I don't remember Hearn putting on any cards that were that sort of flaccid and sort of meh, not in Britain. But anyway, the point is that Cruz and presumably his representatives have recognised that DAZN is far-reaching, because Hearn, first of all, DAZN isn't just about MATCHROOM. They've got Golden Boy as well, and it wouldn't surprise me if they reached out and brought in other promoters in different territories. They branched out. But Hearn has put shows on in Mexico. He just promoted Canelo, or co-promoted Canelo against John Ryder. John Ryder was one of his fighters. He's put, obviously, Europe and Britain, yes, the United States, but he is building a what you would call an international global brand. That's his ambition, and he's on the way to doing it. He's not there yet. And I think Cruz, as a man who was surely sought after by every major promoter in the world, has probably looked at Hearn, looked at the ambition. And Hearn, of course, has the silver tongue, and he can sweet talk people. And, he's just had an extension of the in the Mexican territories and the US territories on his DAZN contract. So I think Cruz probably thought, this is the guy for me. This guy's got ambition. This guy can get me fights in all areas of the world. Whereas had he gone to, say, Top Rank, it would have been America, maybe Mexico. Had Warren signed him, where would it have been? Co-promotion with Top Rank in Britain, maybe. Doesn't speak the language. I don't know. I think Andy Cruz has made the right decision. And if I was a young fighter, I had years ahead of me. I know he's nearly 28, Cruz, but there's absolutely no miles on the clock with him in terms of his. I mean, he had such a glittering amateur career. He kind of dominated everything. I think he's got years ahead of him. I would be looking at DAZN as a real proposition. I'd have to look at the terms and everything. But if I was a young fighter with years ahead, someone who wasn't looking to cash out for years and years, I would be looking at DAZN, because it is trying to become a global brand and may well do so. And certainly from DAZN's point of view, they're going to think Andy Cruz, a glittering star. This is the type of fighter we want, because he's going to increase our international brand. So I think this is a really good move for Cruz and a really good move for DAZN, and a real shot in the arm for Eddie and MATCHROOM, which they kind of needed, because they, with Buatsi and Akoli leaving, which may be a blessing when you consider how poor their last performances were. I know Buatsi, has been very impressive in the past, has been explosive, but it was really quite striking how mediocre and how it was almost like a sparring session watching that fight. And Akoli, he's blown hot and cold, definitely in the past. So Boxer and Sky, perhaps not building their stable as much as they could do, certainly not internationally. But Hearn is looking to rule the world, so to speak. And Cruz is definitely a shot in the arm for MATCHROOM. So probably some of you know more about the amateur game than I do. Leave your comments below. What are your comments on Cruz? Do you think it's the right move for him going to DAZN? Do you think Eddie and MATCHROOM have really won the lottery here by getting his signature? I think it's a massive signing for them. Let me know your opinions, whatever they are. Give your opinions below and I'll answer them. I always like reading your opinions. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Just hit the subscribe button. It takes you a second. That's all I ask. Thank you very much for your time. As always, we'll speak again soon. Bye for now.